is doing a very thorough, thank you. They're doing a thorough search for the new CEO to ensure that the culture that we've worked on within the agency this past, period is consistent for the staff and for the team. We are going to go ahead with introductions. Victoria.
Hi, everybody. My name is Victoria Kelly. I am the Manager of Organizational Advancement at the HLA. Did you want me to popcorn it to somebody?
Yeah, just popcorn it to someone. That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's stick with the HLA. And Laura, you're up next.
My name is Laura Wojohn. I'm the Grants and Contracts Manager with HLA. Off to you, Karen.
Hi, good morning. Karen Yatchum, Human Services Director with Pinellas County.
Mr. Riddle.
Joe Riddle, Grants Program Manager with the Pinellas County Housing and Community Development.
Harold Strickland, Housing and Community Development Director at Pinellas County. Chuck?
You're muted, Chuck.
Sorry about that. Chuck
okay.
Lane, Assistant Director, Economic Development and Housing Department for the City of Clearwater.
Lynn.
Lynn Farr, City of St. Petersburg.
Arrow.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to get my headphones connected. Arrow Woodard, Housing Manager, City of Largo.
Councilmember Beckman.
Kathleen Beckman, Clearwater City Council and Chair of the COC.
Janine.
Morning.
Good morning. So we are going to, and Janine is our amazing JWB representative. And I had a great chat with Beth yesterday. So she spoke very highly of you, Janine, by the way. So I wanted to share that with you. We're going to go ahead today. So let's go into our chair and vice chair conversation. Oh, hi, Anne Marie. Did no one pass to you? I am so sorry.
Good morning. Anne Marie Winter, I'm with the Area Agency on Aging. It's my first meeting. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. So as everyone knows, we are moving into COC election time. And with that, Duggan actually had resigned from the chair of Funders Council back in September. So we have not had a chair or a vice chair of Funders Council. And so today we need to have a conversation about that. And I know that there are also conversations going around of, is the structure of the COC that we have today the right structure? Do we need a separate providers and funders council? Do we need to maybe merge them? Because we do have challenges on the funder side with people being able to, as from conversations I've had with folks, being able to serve as a chair or vice chair just due to some issues in the politicalness of Pinellas County and within roles. So I just wanted to go ahead and just share that with everyone and throw that back to the council for discussion and see if there is anybody that could be or is able to be chair at this time or vice chair.
Well, Monica, I can share, so when we last met, we talked about each of the municipalities in the county kind of circling back with their attorneys to discuss this issue. And so that was done for the county staff. I have shared the legal opinion with both Carol and Joe. And it is our county attorney's recommendation that county staff are not serving as the chair because of that voting issue where we could potentially be voting with or against the member of the Board of County Commissioners. It's also in conflict with the Pinellas County directive regarding staff participating on boards. So it's definitely not an issue of, willingness. It is the recommendation from them that we are not.
Okay. Excuse me. And that's really good to know, Karen, because I know that, we've had lots of conversations about it and we never want to put a staff member in any of our municipalities or even with the HLA in any position that is not going to help them and be conducive in any way.
As to your second question regarding the merging, I will just say I have found those meetings to be more productive. I do feel like merging of the two was productive and a lot, gets done or accomplished without having to go through two different committees for voting. But I don't feel strongly either way. I just do feel that bringing people together and having a discussion versus waiting and then bringing it up, I enjoy.
Yeah, I would say that for the flow of what we do within the COC, there are a lot of contractual obligations that the HLA has in what's written in charter for document flow and approvals. And I would say that even going back to that first providers funders joint meeting, I think it was eye-opening for both sides on certain conversations that we're all fighting the same battle here at just different sides. I know I'm leaving, but I think that the work that we've seen come from these joint provider funder meetings have been significant. It also does help with getting items approved through the flow that we have to follow. And looking toward next year in review of the charter, I think that there's a beautiful opportunity right now to really look at the structure of the COC to determine what you all think is going to work best moving forward. Times change, and when this was originally put together, we were to pre-COVID. The world has changed completely, and so as much as I can, I think it would be a recommendation that the funders council and the providers council may want to look at joining. I know that that's a conversation that needs to take place also with providers, but I can tell you the work that we've seen come from the joint meetings have been not only appreciative, but I think have helped move our needle that we talk about all the time being moved more than anything else we've done.
I think the other thing with it is, especially post-COVID, that there's a lot more overlap where funders may also be providers of certain services now. And so it's kind of figuring out what hat we have to do, and then, or are we joining both different, committees and so forth. So I think I would be supportive of merging as well.
I agree with that too. I think that those joint meetings have been very productive. I think joining the two boards makes a lot of sense. So.
Well, we have a providers meeting this afternoon. And so if you all, if it is the will of the committee, I am happy to propose this to providers this afternoon. We are already doing 4 meetings together versus, 6 separate meetings. And if we're really looking to help people unmeet, like, let's be real, folks, we're all meeting way too much and just the meetings are ridiculous. So if we can actually combine some meetings and get some really good work done, I think it would be in the best interest of everybody and all of your good work that you're doing. So if it is the will of the committee, I will present that to providers. Does anybody, I want to respect our Robert's Rules of Order. And so I would actually like to ask if anybody like to make a formal motion on that. So and a second if possible, because I would like to make sure that we're following Robert's rules in all decision making.
I'll make a motion that you recommend to the Providers Council that we join the 2 committees.
Is there a second?
Arrow. I'll second.
Make it a full vote, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? No. Okay, great. Thank you all. I will, when we begin in advance of our Providers Council meeting today, I will actually send a meeting notice to April Lauder, current Providers Council Chair. It's looking, there is going to be a vote this afternoon that Kevin Marone with Bully will be the new incoming Providers Council Chair. So I will include him on that meeting as well. If we could then, and thank you all, I think that's a really great move. And, I think it's going to be really wonderful for this system. If we could scroll down, please, to the schedule. So we may want to revise the schedule. You know, we are recommending to remove any Christmas related events, any holiday related events. So Victoria and the rest of the HLA team has worked really, really hard this year over the last month or so, I would say, to look at dates. We have had some of these dates approved. I know that April, the chair of providers, has approved the joint dates. So I think that we'll look at that February 16th to see how, if that becomes a joint meeting or an individual funders meeting based on the conversation that we have actually this afternoon with providers. Any questions or concerns on the dates as of now? And again, this might, you know, again, that December 20th, we are definitely recommending rescheduling.
Monica, just a clarification. So if the Providers Council also votes to combine, what is the process and how long would that take before it would officially become one committee?
Well, you know, that's actually a great question, Arrow. And actually, it wouldn't be very, we're going to be doing, from what I understand, a review of charter currently. And both the providers and the funders councils can meet together at their own will without that necessarily being a change in charter. But if we do combine the committees, we will need to do a charter change on both the funders council, providers council, and the main COC charter. But you can continue to work. The vote on the charter would not stop the work of the committees working together, Arrow. Any other comments? No? Great. However, if the merger isn't immediate, we will still need a chair for funders. So let's keep that in mind in the back of our heads. Victoria, can you, or whomever is sharing the agenda, just go up, please. So reminders, please, some big reminders. Please have your team volunteer to be a volunteer. It is coming up quickly, 6 weeks or 5 weeks and 5 days, I think we're at, Victoria, if I'm not mistaken. It's coming up. We're really excited. We will be interviewing on the HLA side in the next couple of weeks for a new special initiatives coordinator. And I am very, if Victoria is okay with me making a grand announcement today, I'm very, very happy to report that Victoria Kelly has been promoted to the Senior Manager of Organizational Advancement for the HLA and Strategy. This is a well-earned promotion for Victoria. She is, I will miss working with you, and I know you know this, but so if you could all please continue to show her support and kindness and grace during this transition, as she will be assisting Pam, our HLA board chair, during this transition as well. Yes, congrats, Victoria. This is well earned, well earned. Again, please, Victoria, if you please put the PIT sign up into the chat, please, that would be great. I want to let everyone know that we are monitoring the weather going on. Lenny is actively, he's been emailing me this morning about the upcoming weather. He's going to be putting an email out later today, or maybe if he hasn't already done so, but we will continue to monitor the weather and the temperature over the next couple of days. It does look like we need, if we need to activate, we will. And so I would say that if everyone, does anybody else have any comments and reminders for the group?
I do, not necessarily a reminder. I just wanted to kind of throw out, I'll say, an idea. So at the last joint providers funders council meeting, there was a lot of discussion regarding family emergency shelter, and that was the main priority for any additional or kind of change in funding. I believe some type of letter or notification was going to be forthcoming to all of the different municipalities or you know, the JWB or etc. So I don't know if that's still in the works, but one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about, so I was very clear that if changes were made, it may be that it would be not funding something in the future to potentially look at funding or increased funding for family emergency shelter. So one of the things that I just kind of want to throw out is something that is being considered is that we have been, you know, Monica, and you're aware of this, we've been working with the HLA to formalize the street outreach standards and to host a meeting with the current street outreach providers to talk about gaps, to talk about, you know, the services that are being provided, because the county has for a very long time funded a smaller street outreach team. The funding is right around $400,000. So it's not a, you know, it's not a huge countywide program, but we've been kind of waiting for the standards to be finalized so that we could procure the service. And so I know that that work is probably going to, you know, pause kind of with the transition of Monica's position. But one of the things is, you know, is it something that we should consider? So are we saturated enough with the current outreach teams that are through the municipalities and through other funding streams, where it would still be a possible recommendation from the COC or these committees that the county consider moving the outreach funding into increased funding for family emergency shelter? So I'm just saying there's a lot of ifs here that, you know, like nothing has been decided, but you know, I know that there was discussion previously, I think with a NOFA, that we lost points because we don't have countywide street outreach. So I'm not saying this is a perfect solution. I'm just kind of putting it out there before we procure the service that we've been funding for many years. Is this an opportunity to do something different or enhance what we're currently funding to meet what the COC has said is the #1 priority?
Karen, I got to add to that. So our street outreach, and I'd love to hear from St. Pete and Clearwater, and if Pinellas Park's on here too. The phone calls are inundating the street outreach person, inundating, like in a couple hours, 20 to 30 phone calls. And so we do not have, I don't know if we still have the front door. I think we still have it for families, correct, through 211, but we don't have a front door for homeless individuals. And what's happening is, because I appreciate that the shelters are trying to take the referrals from street outreach instead of just lining people up and taking them. I think that's a good approach to really work on the folks that might be, you know, have been waiting a while to get in shelter and so forth. But they're literally just getting calls at their shelter and forwarding them down the list on to which street outreach person they can reach. And so it's really unsustainable, because then those folks aren't out in the street. They're literally answering phone calls. So I don't know what the answer looks to that, or if there's a way to potentially use part of that as like a front door, almost like a call center type thing for kind of coordinating that for homeless individuals at all, or how we somehow triage that volume calls. Also, the hospitals and rehab centers are, instead of calling us now, they're having their clients call directly so that we're not telling them to contact the shelters for intake.
So Arrow, for St. Pete, I would say that it's kind of twofold, because we have Path. So I think Path is getting calls as well. April is receiving phone calls. The issue that I see is that for some of our shelters, the way that they get in, so I'm going to use Pinellas Hope, the way they get in is through street outreach, right? And so if there is not street outreach in other places, then they are saying, well, call these street outreach employees. And we have pushed back to some extent and put that back on Pinellas Hope to say, you all created it this way. This is how you want it. So you need to work out how those individuals get in, because if we count them as St. Pete, then, and they're not St. Pete residents, right? So, and they have a responsibility to have 40% of St. Pete residents go into Pinellas Hope. So I think it is twofold there. If we don't have a full street outreach countywide, then that impacts the areas that we do have. Plus we have people that just show up, and we obviously know people travel, they're in all different municipalities. So trying to figure out where people reside mostly is an issue, but we really don't have a place to tell people to turn to if we don't have full countywide street outreach. But Karen, to your point, I am very worried about the shelter, the family shelter aspect of that, because our ARPA dollars are going to end, right? And so our scattered site family shelter, which is 25 beds right now, at up to 28, I believe, will go away.
Mhm.
And we don't have, I mean, that's $2.5 million. I did not request that and a budget to pull from, to pull from general fund dollars. So that is a very big worry of mine.
And believe me, I'm not even close to saying that it's a perfect solution. I feel like the message I left with at the last joint meeting, loud and clear, was family emergency shelter is the #1 priority. And I will say from the county, historically, we have really focused on our funding for adults because we have a juvenile welfare board. We have, the Children's Services Council in our community. So our focus has always been, adults or adults without children. And in recent years, the smaller decision package was done. And I believe JWB still funds some services at St. Vincent de Paul for family emergency shelter. I see Janine saying yes. But that's kind of some of the decisions that we're trying to look at from department to department. And what's the best use? Is it that we should re-procure outreach? I, for one, and I believe we all agreed when we met as a community that outreach should not be a call center. They should be locating those that are the most vulnerable, that are living unsheltered, that need to be connected to various services, including shelter. So I think that, I, for one, would not be an advocate to create additional call centers. I feel like there are enough individuals living unsheltered that need connection. And I really believe connection to health and behavioral health is also of utmost importance. So it's a very hard decision, and it's just something that I kind of wanted to float here. Unfortunately, I cannot be at the Providers Council meeting this afternoon. But I don't want to make a decision to just re-procure street outreach, because again, I heard loud and clear that families for emergency shelter is the #1 priority.
Yeah, I wouldn't advocate for a call center either. We have 211, and we also, the city of St. Petersburg funds HLA for a homeless hotline. So we're already funding enough places for people to call, and they are calling street outreach. And so I don't know that is.
And they're emailing. I mean, I'm like everybody else. My email has gone up 300% with people requesting help. I mean, it is families and emergencies. And
so maybe as part of the updating the standard procedures for street outreach too, we could maybe almost standardize like expect a call back within 48 or 72 hours, like kind of have, so it's similar messaging throughout the street outreach groups that are there to allow them to have that time to focus on the street more. Because otherwise you could spend all day just returning phone calls at the current time. But I had that same question actually that Karen's bringing up too, because we don't have much in our community development block grant for actual operating dollars, but we can allocate some toward capital for expansion of family shelter. So I didn't know if the other entities are looking at putting out an application this year for expansion of family shelter with the funds they have for that, or potentially any operating for such.
Ara, we're not going to put out I don't think anything specific to that, but we would certainly encourage that kind of application. But you're right about CDBG. We're much more, it's much easier for us to fund capital projects than it is to provide operating funds. So if there is a creation of a family shelter, an expansion of a family shelter, that's something we can participate in. And even if it's not in Clearwater, because a portion of our residents will utilize that. So I would definitely support that. Absolutely.
We were thinking about putting it as as kind of the number one request in the application cycle this year for that. And if we don't get it, we're probably going to do some neighborhood projects that we have kind of that we'll put on the alternate list to fund if we don't get any for that. But our amount is not enough to do much on its own. So I didn't know if there's, or, you know, even JWB, if you guys are looking at anything like that as well.
Yeah, and I would concur with Chuck. We are not looking specifically at that, but if we did receive an application requesting funding to expand a family shelter, it would be one that we would look at and look to fund if it scored the appropriate funding.
Does it make sense though, if it was identified as a top priority, to somehow give it extra points if that's what's submitted, like as a priority type of project in application cycles? I don't think anyone's done their application cycle yet this year, right? For next year?
No. Our structure is not set up right that way right now, Errol. You know, the majority of the projects that we get in, we're able to provide funding for. We do score them to rank them for those one or two that fall off each year, but primarily we have the funding available to take care of those applications that we come in. And again, don't have that priority points set up in our funding scoring as we have it set up right now.
You know, Errol, it's a good discussion. I'll talk to our advisory board about prioritization, because we all know that this is the number one issue in our county right now. And if, you know, if our board wants to do that, we could apply more, you know, a higher score to those types of applications. I'll have the discussion with our board.
Lynn, this is Helen. I'm not sure how CDBG works for us. Can you help a little, or is that something that is done on our end for shelters?
We don't have a priority set up in our process either. We put the application out, which will start in January, for subrecipients to apply for funding. We do public service and capital improvement projects.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
This is Jane. I can certainly take all this discussion and information back to Beth and kind of let her know this is the first meeting that I'm attending of this group. And certainly we are aware that there's definitely a need for more family shelter in Pinellas County. That's not something that we have a lot of investment in currently. We do fund St. Vincent de Paul, and then I believe we fund part of the shelter as well as some of the Bridging Families program or Family Bridge program. And then in addition to that, when the St. Petersburg Free Clinic closed down their family shelter, we did transfer or move some dollars to St. Vincent de Paul to expand our investment there. But at this point, I believe that is our only investment in shelter. And really our focus has been more on the prevention end. And we've put a significant amount of money into the Family Services Initiative to try and prevent families from becoming homeless. And a lot of our requests we currently have are for eviction prevention, where families are at risk of eviction. Many of them already have 30-day notices. And so our focus has really been on trying to keep them in their current housing so that we're not contributing and increasing the number of families that are homeless. But as I said, I can certainly take this information back to Beth and let her know, you know, that this has been identified as a priority in the community, especially with this group, and that you guys have identified some potential possibilities of capital for shelter, but no operating. At least that's what I'm hearing at this point.
Well, and I guess this question is back to HLA, or the COC. So is that document coming that was discussed at the last meeting, that is the #1 priority of the COC? Because I don't know that I've seen that. And then my second question is it accurate that we have lost points in the NOFO for not having countywide street outreach? So, is that a risk that we need to discuss if this funding is going to shift? Because these are all things that I'm going to need to kind of take into consideration when making the recommendation to county admin on, continuing our plan to procure street outreach, or possibly making the recommendation that we no longer fund that and we move it to family emergency shelter.
Karen, let me do this because I don't want to speak out of turn, and I've kind of put NOFO behind me. I am going to pull up the NOFO scoring to ensure. I know that one of the big issues we have with not having more street outreach is built for zero. We are working on that document, and with some of the transition, it was obviously delayed. But we will talk to providers about it today, and I'll pull up the NOFO scoring to ensure. But I do know that one of the problems that we're having is through built for zero. So as a COC, if you want to continue doing built for zero, street outreach is an issue. And it's one of the stopping points where we are with it. But again, it's very hard when you look at, okay, build for zero. Yes, we're losing for street outreach. I'll check with the NOFO, but there's also not enough family. I mean, so we're talking almost in circles here. But there's such a need that we couldn't fund. You guys couldn't fund everything and still get everything done that we need to do. So let me check the information, Karen, and I'll get back to you.
And just one last thing, it's okay. And I don't want anyone to take away that like this is going to solve the issue. This is not a tremendous amount of funding. So I still think that the message and discussion from the last meeting that the COC asked all funders to take a look at how this could be increased. This is, street outreach is right around $440,000 total. So it's not a tremendous amount of money. It's not going to solve this issue. It's just going to be a small increase if that's the way that we move forward.
Karen, could that money, thinking along Janine's lines too, I'm not sure how our rapid rehousing dollars are going now. I know there was a ton in the system from the pandemic and so forth. If we could help get our families rehoused quicker, would part of that money make sense to bolster rapid rehousing?
I mean, I can just say the county, along with the cities, like we're the funders of rapid rehousing right now. So we have FHAP, which is right around probably $1 million, and then the CoLab, which is right around another $1 million. And I think we all know that it's finding housing is the issue there. So the teams, the teams are at their capacity. You were exploring some different ideas through the CoLab to serve more families, kind of shifting funding a different way. So that work's being done, but again, that wasn't where I left with the priority at the last meeting. So I'm just trying to operate how we have all agreed to operate, that the COC sets the priority, we agree to the priority, and then we go back and try to help figure out how we work to meet that if we can.
I think to your point though, like the reason, motels isn't necessarily the end all be all is because the money's gone. And if housing is such a shortage right now, you're blowing through that money with potentially not getting them housed at the end of it. And the same could happen with shelter, right? We fill the shelter up and then they sit because they can't find housing. So I don't know, other than preventing it in the first place, but we do have this huge influx of folks that have already passed that point. I guess those are 3 different ways to address the same problem, is the rapid rehousing, put them in shelter, which still needs housing dollars with it to get them back into housing. I don't know.
I have one quick question going back to the family shelter, and we were talking about expansion. Are we aware of any agencies that have expansion plans ready to go that could be put in for funding this next cycle? And I guess that's the question. Are those family shelters ready to expand if they had the funding?
I don't know about that, Joe. That's a really good question. And I will pose that to providers this afternoon when we meet, because I honestly don't know.
There was a list during the pandemic at some point of shovel-ready projects, and it was probably outdated. I don't know if anyone else remembers that. I wonder where that list is and what was on it. It wasn't just family shelter, but I don't remember if there was other stuff on there.
I'll look through Amy's old files and see if I can find it, Arrow.
But I also would go back and make that point again to Karen's point there. If that is our major thing that we need to be working on, we need to have that list of projects that we can be looking at either to fund this year or late, next year. Take this year, getting that list ready to go, that we can find those capital funds to be able to fund or be able to start making those preparations. If family shelter is where we need to go, then we need to be focusing, looking for that funding and being able to get it ready in order to do it.
So I will just say on our end, so I do see both sides of it, but then when I think of Karen's number, so that 400,000, depending on upon how you use it. So if you did it for scattered site, that could be 2 or 3 months of families, depending upon how many, right? That capacity. So I would say, are we really touching or doing what we need to do, right? And that's not just the county. I know that. I heard you loud and clear, Karen, not just the county, other municipalities, but when we think of it that way, are other municipalities ready to put money up for that, whatever that looks like? Is someone ready to build onto their shelter? I don't know that, but I do know that we are doing a lot of scattered site in our area right now. JWB is doing scattered site. The city of St. Pete is doing scattered site, or at least funding those programs, both with St. Vincent de Paul, and then we're both funding St. Vincent de Paul's shelter, their Bridging Families program. But if we take that amount of money away and put it towards shelter, then we're still losing with those who are living unhoused on the street, right? So we've got 107 families on the shelter prioritization list. How many that's right. And they're doing scattered site as well, but that scattered site takes so much money because you got to pay for the hotel room. And I know it works because it's keeping people safe, but that $400,000 is going to go so fast unless there's an actual shelter that can be run. So then we take that away, we put that into shelter, other municipalities touch it. Still, our $2.5 million has not, I think we're at 100 families over these few years, which is a lot. That's a good amount, right? But then we're taking away from street outreach and those individuals who are on the street, who need the help, who need those touches in order to do a few things. They need to, that's the only way that some of them can get into shelter. They need the resources, and they need the, my goodness, the word is not coming to my mind. They need to have those touches put into HMIS so that they can prove that they have been out, they've been in our system for a while. Somebody help me with that word because it's not coming.
Chronicity.
Chronicity,
Yes,
thank
chronicity.
you.
Yes.
Whoa, it was not working for me. Yes, but they need that chronicity status for programs that are longer term, right? And so if we take away from street outreach, and that's what I was going to talk about, Monica, was the Built for Zero. That's the whole thing. Like, that is our plan. Was to build up street outreach so that we can get to functional zero with our chronically homeless individuals. And so if we don't have street outreach, which is a huge component of that, then I don't see how we get there. And rapid rehousing was originally, I know we put our families up top, but rapid rehousing was originally for individuals who are living unhoused on the street. And we have no program, with the exception of the collab, that is touching individuals right now.
So on the 400,000 too, I know, and I want to hear from the other jurisdictions if it's a need too. Would it make sense to have a countywide position that really hones in on the long-term chronic homeless on the street, kind of like the really more high-level clinician position that could work with other street outreach folks and so forth on trying to get our most vulnerable off the street and then use a portion of that 400,000 for addressing the family needs. We're also seeing even they're individuals, but we're seeing a huge spike in females out on the street. I don't know if the others are too, but that could potentially also lead to attracting trafficking even more to our communities. I mean, like we're seeing like 30% of the calls we're getting are from females now. It's a big shift. So those are individuals. They don't have kids too, but we have, I know Pinellas Hope takes all, but like HEP has very limited female beds. And that's because it's traditionally been a smaller portion of the street homeless population. But we have like folks waiting to get in shelter now that are females. So I don't know, maybe there's a way to split. I don't know if there's a need for like a higher level commission on one side for that or not.
Well, and again, that I think that's where our hope was going. You know, our hope was that the HLA was going to assist with getting those standards done, convening the groups that are already providing outreach so that we, with our procurement, could look at how can we be innovative, you know, and we have the street medicine team that we are continuing to fund. You know, that was a one-time grant, but we have figured out how to continue funding that for at least another year. And there is a very big intersection with linking the most vulnerable with healthcare and behavioral healthcare, and we have that program. So, you know, I'm not looking necessarily for a decision today. I just kind of wanted to get input because this is even ahead of the budget discussion. You know, this is a procurement, this is funding that we have on the table right now, that if we need to, you know, get creative, that was where we were going. You know, how do we look at the most vulnerable, the adults that are living unsheltered, and wrapping them in all of the resources that the county provides, which again is a robust health program to keep them from dying living on the streets. Like that really was kind of where we were going. It didn't move as fast as we would like it to move, but so now we kind of have to take it on and make a decision on which direction we're going. And I don't want to do that without having the conversation, you know, and including the conversation that was had at the last meeting. So, I mean, I think this discussion is very helpful. I don't think any of us have, you know, a perfect solution. It's just, you know, trying to prioritize what is of the most importance right now. And if we can shift the funding, where, you know, should we shift it or should we stay on the track of finding the most vulnerable, those that are unsheltered, and wrapping them in every possible service, including access to shelter? But healthcare is a major priority for them as well, for us. So I mean, if the discussion can be held at providers, I think that'll be helpful. I'm just not going to be there, so it's unfortunate. So if it makes it to the agenda and there's discussion, I'd love to watch the video and hear kind of what the discussion is to help inform the decision.
I just want to say too, I mean, these are all things that whether or not our funding can go directly toward this, or, you know, we all know each of our sources can be used for different things, but thinking about the priorities, because I know, like, example, senior homelessness is another big issue, but like if we're meeting with affordable housing developers, what are we hearing as some of the primary groups that need to be housed and so forth, or becoming homeless because they can't find affordable housing? So there's more, you know, more than one way to tackle the problem.
Well, this is Kathleen. So Monica, can you ensure that discussion will be had this afternoon with providers as well?
Yeah, I'll absolutely. Yeah, Kathleen, I already have a note to add it for the agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other? No?
Oh.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, I'm not a funder. I just had a 2-minute input on what Karen had said. On the Public Defender's Office, we fund a full-time caseworker who does street outreach to work with folks who are low-level ordinance violators to keep them out of the justice system as much as we can. But so I would just speak to when I was trying to reach to different street outreach officers, it's very difficult because it's just so diverse. So having a collective place to have a collective collaborative way of working together, of process, just on the justice side, as I review the arrest records every day and see 30% of what I'm seeing is transient chronic. It's not, don't quote me on that, but that's just, I would say having a coordinating thing just from the point of view I have here would be highly important.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anybody have any additional reminders or things to share for the group?
We just have one thing I wanted to share out. So Largo is participating in Homeless Remembrance Day. I think the actual day is on the 21st. We have a proclamation going on the 19th. And then the 21st, we're doing kind of a like all throughout the day luminary lighting thing down our walkway so people can come in and grab a bag and a candle and light it and put it down the walkway. But we are pushing out, of course, how can you help? Sign up for PIT as well with that messaging on social media and at City Hall for those two events that day too. So all are welcome.
Anne Marie?
Yeah, thanks. I'm grateful to be a part of this group. We traditionally, with seniors, haven't really been seeing a lot of homelessness up until a couple of years ago, primarily after the pandemic. And it's an issue that is significantly affecting the callers that we get. Our call rate has increased by about 40% in terms of the number of seniors. So this would be anybody 60 or over who is experiencing homelessness or telling us that they are at risk of losing their home. And so some of you on this group and others were invited to participate in a roundtable discussion that we did both in Pinellas and Pasco counties to see what role, if any, the Area Agency on Aging can play. And one of the things that was clear was just to make sure that the voice of the seniors at the table, in addition to trying to figure out how we help to prevent homelessness among the senior population. So I look forward to contributing to this discussion, either as a provider or a funder, because we are both as well. And I look forward to inviting those of you who are interested in working on a work group specifically related to preventing senior homelessness and increasing affordable housing for seniors to let me know so that I can include you in upcoming discussions we're going to have. Thank you.
Joe?
I will just let the group know that our application round for CDBG as well as ESG will open up on January 10th and run through February 12th. So our applicant is just around the corner that we're going to start that process once again.
Anyone else? If not, this is my last funders meeting with you all. I just want to thank you all for being so supportive and continuing the good work. I will be at USF as the Chief of Staff for the Dean of College of Nursing. We have some great, so I say that because there's also some really wonderful opportunities to partner. And I wish you all an amazing year. And I know that the HLA board is going to find somebody fabulous to come in and work with you all. And it truly has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Monica. We wish you well.
Thank you, Carol. And with nothing else, calling the meeting adjourned at 9:50. and everybody gets a little bit of their time back in their day. And I hope everybody has a beautiful holiday season, no matter what you celebrate, and a beautiful start to your 2024. Thank you all.